Hi everyone, I am here with a true story. What? This one is by Jody Carlson and it is called 1015. I have insomnia. Yes, I have insomnia.
Don't we all?
Yeah. Not just last night or for the past 2 weeks. Not in the past 2 months or even in the past 2 years. All 36 years of my life since birth. Sleep has not come naturally for me. Is this my story? Doctors' offices and every kind of medication have been part of my life story. All of the medical professionals I've ever visited were perplexed. Finally, when I was 22, I saw a sleep specialist. His diagnosis? Primary idiopathic insomnia. What does that mean? I asked, eager to finally have a name for my nemesis.
You can't sleep.
It means there's no medical, psychological, or environmental explanation for my insomnia, he said. And it means you've had it since birth. Gee, thanks, Captain Obvious, I thought. The unfortunate thing about long-term insomnia is that it's not isolated to your nights. Rather, it affects your entire being, your body, your spirit, and most importantly, your mind. Over time, with some added oomph from my genes, I came to know insomnia's dreaded brother and sister, anxiety and depression. This is my story. Is this your story too?
I guess.
These three have come to form a triangular beast in my life, and I'm not proud of, but I've come to accept just as a person must accept the color of his or her skin. I could tell story after story of my countless prayers regarding sleep. I cried out to God to just let me sleep, only to lie awake hour after hour with ever-increasing anxiety that tomorrow would be a horrible day, and of course, drowning in panic that something was deeply wrong with me. Misery, hopelessness, and isolation consumed me. It seemed as if God didn't care, and no one would ever understand. 1 month I was on the verge of collapse, and at risk of losing my job because I couldn't function. I'd been at this spot before, and had in fact quit my dream job as a magazine editor when I was 24 years old and moved halfway across the country to live with my parents in order to get healthy and rebuild. 8 years later, I again had a job I loved and was blessed with a supportive community of believers around me. But the vicious tri-beast, anxiety, depression, and insomnia, was consuming me. It was all I could do to get through each day, and collapse on my bed again at night, only to be robbed once more of the one thing that could restore me. My eyes were hollow. My heart was numb. I echoed my tiny prayers over and over again. Help me, God. You're all I got. Deliver me. I'd learned over the years from Job 13:15 that my pain doesn't imply that God has weaknesses. As Job put it, that's right, the book of Job is a good book to read if you're suffering. Though he slay me, yet will I hope in him. Job 13:15. God is not limited. Rather, my perspective is limited. I am merely a human confined to inner thought. I am not privy to God's perspective. So, who am I to judge him and put him in a box labeled mean? On this particular night, I reached for a book on my bedside stand. It was in the middle of hinds feet or high places. A beautiful story about Much Afraid, a character, and the different terrain the shepherd would lead her through, teaching her lessons each step of the way. I also simultaneously reached for my iPod. I'd never put those two together before. Usually I would read or I would listen to relaxing music to try to get my mind off of the fact I wasn't sleeping. But on this night I reached for both. It was around 10:15, which is the name of the story. I opened my book and began to read. This particular section was about Much Afraid, walking through a forest, observing the trees and listening to the birds. Then the strangest thing happened. I began to hear birds. It was a soft, beautiful chirping, a delicate melody of praise. I heard rushing water. Just as Much Afraid walked along a stream bed, I stopped. I looked up at my bedroom wall. What was happening? Where was I? After a dazed moment, reality hit me. My iPod was on shuffle, and the song that just happened to play in the very moment I started the forest scene with Much Afraid was a nature tune, a song of wildlife sounds I had downloaded from a CD labeled Relax into Sleep. Tears immediately welled up and overflowed. God cared about me so much that he put these two things together in that moment to minister to my spirit and remind me of my hope in him. It was completely beautiful and humbling. As Much Afraid was learning how to trust her shepherd, I was doing the same. God cared. He loved me. He would see me through. The next day, I was just as exhausted as I'd been every day the previous month, but I had hope deep within my soul. My mom called to check in on me, as she had been consistently tracking with me in my misery. Did you fall asleep early last night? Say around 10:15, she asked. My forehead wrinkled. Well, no, I replied, but God spoke to me at that time, as he never has before. What happened? She asked. I told her the story and she began to weep. That was when I prayed out loud for the devil to get away from you, she said. I prayed for God to wrap his two palms around your head, to calm your mind and hold and comfort you. I still don't understand all the suffering I've had to endure as a result of the insomnia, anxiety, and depression beast in my life. But I do know that God, with an intimacy I can't explain, no matter what I go through, I know that I am his, and that he will remain my God, my shepherd, and my forever hope. Though God slay me, yet will I hope in him. Job 13:15. Good night, everyone.